Alright, recording this video basically to show people how to fly in 0.0, because if I see any more kill mails of people dying because they're pretty much like AFKing through autopiloting, dare I say, through 0.0, I'm just going to cry blood. Basically what I've done here, this is actually me flying towards where the HBC were fighting in Stain, and you can see just jumped into a system. I'm in a rapier, so I have the benefit of a cloak, but the functionality still stays the same. So the first thing to do is always check locals, see who's there. They may be actually not hostile, but if they're neutral, they'll obviously appear like this. And really just kind of get the cut of them and just try and understand who they are. So look at their corp history, look at who they are. If they've got like uber elite PvP, oh my god, you know, lol, you're dead, you know, YOLO, whatever, then you know, you're probably gonna have some trouble with them. But if they're just like saying industrial corp or miners or, you know, 0.0 whatever, then, you know, don't believe them, but you should just at least like acknowledge it, because it's, you could be amazed how much the description can actually help you. So all I've done here is obviously report everything. If you're in a coalition or something, report hostiles. Don't be a dick about it. Just, you know, tell people that there's somebody there. Even if they're in a station or they're completely non-hostile whatsoever, you need to just inform people, because again, you don't know what's going on, wider logistics operations and so on. Okay, so the directional scan I've used here, and I've done a 360 scan, and as you can see, I don't think I can see anything here, so I'm assuming that everything kind of within range here is pretty safe. Now, the biggest mistake people do is they'll just walk to the gate at like 100 and maybe be cloaked or whatever. If they've got a drag bubble out, or if you're, you know, if you've done it wrong, you're going to end up basically being killed. So what I always do is you walk to a celestial object nearby, then you refine your scan, and you'll see me do that now. And you can then kind of get the cut of the gates situation. So you see here, I'm just going to reduce the scan, do another scan, and you can see there the gate's empty. Always make sure you've got all the options unchecked, so it will just show you a raw, dare I say, naked view of the gate. So also just checking stations and such, because you never know, it might be a hostile station, it could be an NPC station, you know, you always need to just check. And then while you're in warp, just make sure you do a wider scan as well, because sometimes people will also, quite clever, they'll actually be kind of maybe sat behind the planet that I was at, for example, waiting for something to appear on scan and so on. So you always need to just be a little bit cautious. But your directional scan is the most powerful tool for traveling in deep space, so really become used to it. So you see here, managed to get to the gate and I jumped through. And that's it. That's really all you need to be aware of. So I think in the next system, again, it's clear, so we speed up the footage. So you can see here just rolling around, going nice and quick. If only things warp this quick, eh? And again, every time jump into a system, so in this case, okay, same again. We've got somebody maybe that we don't know who they are, but there's only one person, so you kind of take a bit of an assessment yourself. You know, again, this comes with experience. You just said to yourself, well, you know, if he's in something pretty special with hostile, with friendlies in the system, yeah, you know, am I in real danger here? Maybe. So I think in this case, I actually do again warp, and I'll show you the tactic again. I just warp to a local celestial object and do the scan again, just scanning what you can. Now, if you come into a system where there's the Stargate is as here, many AU away from any scannable or rather warpable object, then you've got a bit of a problem. But again, all I can suggest is that generally if they've got drag bubbles, they're going to put them in line with the in or out gate, particularly in pipeline systems, so you need to be very cautious of that. Generally, if you find that you're not too sure, warp to something that puts you at a perpendicular angle to the gate, warp at the gate, and you probably will be fine. If they've got a dicta bubble up, well, you may have to kind of slow boat it towards the gate. But as you can see here, no problem again, so just jump through. Caution is always the better part of valor, I think, here, so I think, you know, you want to be kind of careful. Don't die stupidly, and I think sometimes there can be a little bit of you know, assumption that, oh no, that's fine, perfectly fine, no problem. But again here, just kind of warping through. G is always a particularly hostile system, so I'm not surprised there's kind of an NPC, a neutral person here. But again, I'm not too concerned. So again, all I've done is warp to a belt. In this case, just quick scan of the gate, looks clear, warp and go. You know, it's simple as that. And I know it's kind of crazy that people don't do this. That guy's Moss is me, that's funny. For many reasons. We used to be allied to them in Delve, but that's a long story. it really is just a case of being careful with how you fly. And I think you just need to understand how bubble mechanics work as well, because really, drag bubbles are probably your worst enemy. Dicta bubbles and things like that, generally they're not too bad, but you can be a bit more kind of cautious with dicta bubbles. So we're just speeding up the footage here, so we're going from gate to gate. So again, jump into a system, a few hostiles here, so we're just going to do our trick again. We'll walk to something near the gate, doing scans continually. Now, again, be careful, because sometimes hostiles know that people do this, so they'll actually sit with bubbles at the customs office or the planet nearby. If you can, belts aren't too bad. If you warp to a belt, obviously you're not going to get too many hostiles sitting there, because obviously they'd have to do some ratting, but just use your sense. And okay, so you can see here, there's a Rage and Terror there, so that's actually a hostile. But you also have NPCs. Now, NPC ults can be both friendly and hostile, so just treat them as absolutely hostile. Even if they say, no, don't shoot, I'm an ult of so-and-so, be very cautious of it. So again, jump through, perfectly fine, sped up the footage. So we jump into LGK. This is a particularly busy system. There's going to be a lot of hostiles in here, but also a lot of friendlies. So again, I think I just take the decision to, there's probably unlikely to be on the gate, so I just warp straight to it. Maybe that was brash, I don't know. But with a recon, I'm going to get away from most things. It's going to be pretty hard to get a recon when I'm being overly cautious. So just jumping through last few systems and almost at my target now. Only took about, I think, 20 minutes maybe to come all the way from Delve to this location. And you see here just that this is probably where it starts to get, I think, quite interesting. Intel has reported that there is actually a camp on the other side of this gate, so I know that already there's something there. And again, reporting, always, don't be a dick about it. Try and report everything that you see. It's not a problem if somebody's already done it, maybe a few lines before you, if it's a different system. Try and report them, because then that helps PvP gangs get to them and kill them. But this one was pretty much obviously a scout. Obviously they're jumping characters to and fro, but we did know that there was pretty much a camp on the other side of this gate, so I'm approaching it very cautiously. You can see here I'm doing all the usual scans just to make sure there's no bubble, but the reality of it is that most times you'll be one ult in this system scouting for the gang that's coming. They're usually cloaked on the gate, so they can give a report of what's coming through. And to be honest, it's pretty. You can see it a mile off, is I guess what I'm saying. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to warp in. I don't know the composition of the gang on the other side, but the way I saw it is, again, I can just basically crush the gate and get back out if needs be. And in a rapier, it's, I'm pretty hard to catch in this. Having said that, I think, I'm also pretty weak, so, if they do catch me, I'm done. So you can see there, they're just jumping back and forth. I think they're kind of really just camping this as a pipeline. But eventually, I think I make the decision to go. Yeah, so there we go. So then I decide to go for it, and this is where I have my fingers crossed, because I know I'm jumping into a camp. And let me just explain, once you get into that situation, what you do next. So as I jump, because I've been cloaked, the chances are they're not going to have reported me as quickly as others may have done. And as you can see here, there's no bubble on the gate, so pretty much this is a no-brainer. Also, there's nobody on the gate. They're basically doing a drag bubble, I think 100 km away from the gate. So all I'm able to do very quickly is immediately double-click in any direction and then hit the cloak. If I wanted to warp, I could obviously warp as well, but I thought I'd actually stick around and see what this gate camp was comprised of, provide a bit of intel, and so on. So this is basically just a Dust to Dawn corp or alliance group, and they're just sat here basically basically killing HBC people as they fly through. And again, I think they've been widely reported, so really the only people they're killing are probably idiots who aren't paying any attention to intel channels whatsoever. But as you can see, I'm kind of, again, trying to report as much as I can. I should be doing ship types as well, but I think at this point I had a rather nice cup of tea in front of me and I was being a bit lazy. But as you can see, they've only got small number of, small ships, so it's mostly tackle, a few recons and so on. So I kind of try and give as much info as I can. But again, it's patchy really on much more what you can do. While I was sat here, I actually did see people kind of warping in and out, and it's just a bit sad really. So you can see there, this guy's just jumped in, or apologies, maybe he actually
didn't jump in. I can't remember. Yes, he jumped in, and he just wasn't paying any attention to intel channels, so obviously he dies. So it's obviously very sad, but this is why you have to travel safely. So you know, if you do the things in this guide, I mean, it's, you know, just common sense really. Just be cautious, and you'll be fine. So let's pay tribute to this poor thrasher. Rest in peace, never forget.